Hello and welcome everybody to our market update on Nigeria, the largest economy in Africa and a country with a large youthful population with a strong tradition of study abroad. Nigeria has a population of over 200 million and more than 60% of them are under the age of 25. Despite the pandemic, nearly 100,000 students from Nigeria were enrolled abroad in 2020, and the most popular destinations were, along with the regional hubs, South Africa and Ghana, the USA, Malaysia, Canada, and the UK. In this webinar, I would like to learn more about how agents recruiting from Nigeria continue to deal with our new normal during COVID-19 pandemic. Many countries have fully reopened to international travel. What's the reaction of Nigerian students and parents? Are agents seeing a surge in consumer confidence, or will students remain cautious amidst an uncertain economic climate? More than 2 years into the pandemic, what trends are emerging for the remainder of this year and for 2023? I am Seher, Business Development Manager at ISEF, and my guests today for this webinar are Mrs. Obianuju Akpo-Edevor and Mr. Adedamola Oluketuyi. Obianuju is a trained legal practitioner by profession, but has started working in the student recruitment industry in 2012. In 2019, she founded her own company, Michael and Rolf Consulting, MRC, and offers, besides education consulting, also legal consulting, immigration services, and visa support. Her company recruits students for institutions from around the world, but the strongest markets are the USA and Canada. Hello, Uju, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Sarah.
My second guest today is Adedamola, and he started his own company, AOC Schengen Limited, in 2018. And before that, he was overseeing the African student recruitment for 2 German universities, IUBH and GISMA. Being a graduate from a German university himself, he is very well informed about the German education system and able to best guide his students towards studying in Germany, but also other European study destinations in the Schengen area. The majority of his students choose bachelor and master programs. Thank you also, Damola, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, guys, I would say let's start right away by giving our viewers a little insight into Nigeria. Uju, you are based in Nigeria. Why don't you start and tell us about how life currently is in Nigeria? Can you maybe tell us a little about the economic and political situation, the travel and visa situation, and maybe also highlight some socioeconomic effects of the pandemic on society, just to have an overview of the whole situation in Nigeria at the moment?
Okay, thank you. As you rightly say, Nigeria is actually the giant of Africa, we say, in terms of population and the economy. But, sadly, being the giant of Africa, economically, Nigeria is not where it should be, if I may say that, because our leaders have not gotten it right yet. We face a lot of problems like insecurity and unemployment, and we also have lack of infrastructure in Nigeria. And that's a big problem to a country as big as Nigeria. For instance, when you talk about the economic policies, our fiscal and monetary policies are not where it should be. Our leaders are yet to get that right. So that has affected so many things, and it played out well during the pandemic. For instance, during the pandemic, we saw large companies laying off staff, which affected the normal families. Families were unable to feed and all that. Then in terms of the Ukraine and Russia war, is also affecting us greatly because Nigeria is an economy which is dependent largely on oil. You know, in terms of agriculture and other resources, we are yet to come up with that. So being dependent on oil has affected us so much with the low cost of oil. Then a country that has oil and produces oil, you know, it will amaze you to see that we still have long queues as we currently experience. Long queues at the filling station because of the shortage of the products. So now, part of what the pandemic did to our country, mostly the SMEs were greatly affected because they couldn't keep up with production because of lights, and during the lockdown, people were made to sit at home. And because our internet facilities weren't that wonderful, so it became a big problem for us to transit to social media and doing things online. Though it was an advantage to some businesses that were very good with social media and online, you know, some of them were able to do their products online, render services. Even the education industry was greatly affected because the hotels were benefiting so much from the education industries because we see schools coming in, you know, to have webinars and all that. But during the pandemic, we were all locked down at home. So the only access we had was internet and our systems, our laptops. That's what we could be able to work with. Then looking at Nigeria, you know, in terms of the economic situation, for instance, the ASU is currently on strike. So the universities that are located in towns, the communities are greatly affected because they're unable to sell their products because the students are not there to patronize them. Then you don't see people moving around because when the schools are in session, I mean the federal institutions, there's always travels here and there. You know, students move from one town to the other. But as we speak, that is not to happen because the students are all at home. So that has also affected the economy greatly. Now, when you look at the education industry, a lot of our youths want to leave this country to study abroad. Not because we don't have the courses here in Nigeria, but imagine running a 4 year course and 6, 7 years, you're still down, you know, trying to figure out when you're going to graduate. So that has impacted negatively on the economy. Then secondly, when you look at the political situation, we are yet to get election policies right in Nigeria. Like currently, we are preparing for election and it's affecting us greatly in terms of the forests. You know, students are struggling to get forests to pay their fees. There's long queues at the bank because our forest policies is controlled entirely by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So for a student to get school fees paid, you need to go through the Central Bank of Nigeria. And as we speak, there's lack of forests. So it's causing a negative impact on the economy. Even when you get to see the forest, you need to pay so much to buy it. So that's also causes increase that's devaluation in Naira, then there's increase in demand, making it scarce for people to access forests in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at the education industry, like I mentioned, the private schools are currently in session, while the public schools, the schools owned by the government, are currently on strike. That's ASU, the academic staff union of the universities, and the non-academic staff union of the universities are currently on strike. So the schools are shut down. So it's only those who can afford to send their children to the private universities. Mm-hmm. They are the only ones that their children are in school. So the rest of the students are at home. What does that entail? Is causing a negative impact on our economy as we speak. Then you have students, you know, struggling, they want to leave the country. Mm-hmm. Then come to look at a market like the US. We have scarcity of appointment dates. Students are unable to get dates to go for their visa interviews. Mm-hmm. Then you look at countries like Germany, there are currently no appointment for our students to go for their interview. You look at countries like Canada. Yes, Canada, there's a bit of improvement in visa processing, but the processing is also long because there are long queues, you know, there are a lot of applications pending. So these are negatively impacting a lot of our students that want to study abroad. Mm-hmm. So that's the challenges we are facing when you talk of the education industry, especially the study abroad business in Nigeria. Countries like Poland, you hardly see any appointments.
Mm-hmm.
Then the UK, currently as we speak, we don't have the priority visa application, which was an opportunity for Nigerian students who are running late with their processing. They're able to do their visa processing through the priority system. But as we speak, that has been removed since the Ukraine war. So there's a long queue getting to do the tuberculosis test.
Mm-hmm.
The medical facilities provided by Canada and UK is overstretched at the moment. So there's a long queue for students to get medicals done. So that's negatively impacting on our students getting the requirements for visa processing.
Okay.
So when you look at all these policies, our leaders are yet to get it right. Then I'm sure you must have heard of the EndSARS, that was in 2020, where the youth came out protesting, saying enough is enough. We need to get things right in this country. So as we speak, Nigeria is a very big market in terms of study abroad business.
Yeah.
You have parents that are ready to pay the money. They have the money, they have the finances. But now the challenges are being able to get visas for their children to go to their country of choice. So that is where we are as a country. But we are looking forward to having a good election come next year and getting things done right. Thank you.
Fingers crossed. Thank you very much, Uju, for this overview. Very interesting, I'm sure, for our viewers. Okay, so Damola, I would like to continue with you and the next question in this webinar. I would like to know how your outbound agency business in this year compared to last year went so far. So do you expect much additional demand in the second half of this year and maybe in 2023?
Okay, so demand is relative because our own market, basically our strategy is totally different. Basically, we pick the countries with opportunities that are not so popular, the Schengen region, every other person thinks of the US, Canada, UK, and every other thing. But we have reasons why we don't go to those markets. We have reasons why we, like if you get the taste of Germany, you understand that there is more to it. So, but from an outsider, it's so difficult, but I'm used to the system. You understand? This is my area. This is almost like second country. And the Schengen region is somewhere I'm very familiar with. So demand is something that we create in people based on the fact. So our route is very expensive, like investing so much in the market, creating the desire, making people see it. But when it comes to demand has always been increasing every year based on our market because we rely on references, we rely on organic growth, you understand? So if we had 10 this year, 10 this month, 20 will come the upper month, you understand? It keeps going that way because we do things organically. So going back to your question, demand will always continue to increase based on it. So we just have to find new products that are interesting for our clients and this demand will always continue to increase. So compared to last year and this year, it has grown also. And next year it will grow.
Okay, hopefully, Damola. Uju, yes. Would you like to add anything to that?
Okay, yes. I know at the inception of the COVID-19, you see people were believing that there's going to be decrease in demand for study abroad education. But that wasn't to be because we actually saw increase. The only challenge we had was getting visa appointments and getting students over. But countries like Canada did something wonderful because they allow students to resume studies online in their respective countries. So, like I must say, there was, we had a lot of students in 2020, doing study abroad, and it was quite amazing, irrespective of the fact that they couldn't travel, but a lot of them were comfortable starting their programs online. And we've also seen the increase. 2021 was also good, then this 2020. In fact, the demand is higher as we speak. Like I mentioned, the insecurity in the country is making a lot of parents think twice. Oh, we need to send our kids out. We don't want them being at home. We don't want them facing strike and all that. So the demand is actually increasing.
Nice.
It's increasing, yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So, Uju, let's continue with you then,
Okay.
with the next question.
Okay.
Sorry, Damola, would you like to add something?
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, I'm not resident in Nigeria, but at least minimum I'm there 7 times in a year. So at least, so I think there's a little contribution. The general, where I'll wrap up with the Nigerian market, you understand, is Nigeria is very big. Nigeria is like 20 countries in one, you understand, I will say. Because every tribe is different. There are over 300 tribes or something. There's so many people in Nigeria, you understand. So every school has its target audience, you understand. There's the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So different experiences might come up. You know, when you're dealing with countries like Switzerland, you understand, money is not the object. They don't have any issues with the economic factor because those are the guys that are actually trying to do things for themselves. So then when you deal with countries like maybe like in the realms of the UK, Germany, and the rest, you understand, those are the guys that are above average. So I don't think money should be an issue for them. But you know, some other guys are trying to leave the country based on the fact that there are too many, like Nigeria has over 80 million youth, but few universities to cater for that. That hence, you find out that someone like Ghana, Nigerian students are the highest number of international students. So there's a spillover. So, and also somewhere like Cotonou, the Benin Republic also, you find that Nigerian students are there also. So Nigerian students have this culture also because it has become a culture to go abroad to go and study. And it has been from years, not just because of the education, because of the opportunities also that you can cater to. So the advice for any other school that wants to do is that you have to know your target audience, where they are located, because Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt are totally different markets from Ogun State, from Rivers, from Delta, totally different from Enugu and the rest. So different people for different markets, you understand? So it's relative. So the opportunity is there for everybody, despite the challenges that every other country has on earth, you understand? But Nigerians are natural survivors and there's a market for everybody, basically.
Yeah.
So it just depends on who you're targeting.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. Okay, great. Uju, let's continue with the next question. And I would like to know, has there been a shift in students' choices over the past 2 years? And have you started, for example, promoting new types of courses or new study destinations, maybe?
Okay, yeah, the past 2 years, there's increase is the UK market. The US and Canada has always been the same in terms of most Nigerians. These are the top study destinations for Nigerians. But since the UK restored the study permit, that's the work study permit, we saw an increase in that market. Then when you're looking at demand for new courses, for the UK, it's tending towards the health sector more. Because the UK governments, organizations and agencies, a lot of them came into Nigeria to recruit doctors, nurses, health workers during the pandemic. So that caused an increase in demand for those education sector, health sector, caregivers, and health sciences generally. So for now, I would say UK is the top market in Nigeria, because they seem to have easier visa processing, if I may say, compared to Canada and the US. You know, so that's basically that. Apart from that, every other course is the same. Okay. We are seeing engineering, businesses, and the rest. Just for the UK market that we are seeing increase in demand in the health sciences.
Okay. Okay, interesting. Damola, anything you would like to add? What's your perspective on this?
I mean, for me, I've never gone with the trend. I always just set it, you understand? So I always stick to the Schengen region. In fact, I have my inbox full of schools from the UK, US, Canada reaching out to me. I don't do it because I have my own personal beliefs on what can work for the students, you understand? I look at the students' interests because those places are very good places. But, you know, when you compare the benefits to what it is, I mean, it's my own personal perspective. I feel you can find other things in these other regions. So trends, I've never been the trends person. I've always just been the person that supports German brands, you understand, things in the Schengen regions. So, and I stick to it, basically. So when it comes to popularity of what it is, I always say something. Everything can be good for you in life. In fact, you borrow a verse from the Bible. See you a man that is diligent in his works. He will sit before kings down there, man. So if you are very good at what you do, the demand will come. There are some courses that give you more exposure, but don't assume that because you studied IT or you studied health management, you come here and get a job. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to be really involved. Mm-hmm. And that's the job of a consultant, to make them understand this and not just go with the trend that, oh, it's hot here. Because you have to understand that every country gets in international students as a form of them settling in. When they train themselves via education, they are coming into the labor force. So there are some countries that don't want students at the moment. They just want the experts at the end of the day. That's why there's always a switch. There's a life cycle of recruitment. So you have to understand where in the market, where on the life cycle, where is the country at the point? How does it benefit the student? Can they cope? It's not all about paying the cheapest school fees, then getting there and suffering, just showing statements, you understand, and everything. It's about how the student can come out a better person, how the student can actually get what they want. Is it immigration possibilities in the quality time? Is it opportunities for you to work and study so that your parents don't have to break their neck, so that at the end of the day, they are there? You know, does the system have to catch you? You don't have to know anybody in the environment for you to actually go to that's a tier 1 country for me. So basically, long story short, I don't go with the trends. I've always stuck to my brands. It has its own disadvantages and advantages, but we're sticking through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Damola. And let's stay with you again and talk about maybe some challenges that you are currently experiencing when sending students abroad or recruiting students from Nigeria. Would you like to talk about this a little?
I mean, the biggest challenge, I see it as maybe their own loss, because sometimes people like to go for the popular options, and benefits are not tied to the name of a country. You're supposed to actually understand what it can actually do for you. And the students, sometimes they understand, but the parents are adamant towards this, because they studied in the popular place and they feel, oh, they should do it that way. So maybe that's a challenge I face sometimes, but it's nothing that cannot be overcome. And number 2, schools in the Schengen region are quite very, very, very constrained. You understand? They're quite shy. Mm-hmm. So maybe they feel intimidated by the other people. And I am the one that is always trying to push that, do this. Mm-hmm. So they get, okay, like for example, there was a school in the Schengen region, I don't have to mention, they were like, yeah, Nigeria, we've tried the agents there, this, that. So maybe they tried once and they failed and they ran back. Whereas the one thing I can learn from the US and the UK, those guys don't give up. You understand? They are ready to go. You understand? So maybe like the Deutsche Bank comes in, or maybe like their own fear comes in, and they're like, if they fail once, they feel nothing is there. They're supposed to actually pick the right partners, go with the right strategy and come in. So we don't have enough people in the market to support that we need. And we don't have more reliable partners in some certain regions. That's just the only thing. Because we have tried to support some schools in these regions and they were not ready. So reliable partners, more partners coming from the Schengen region, that's a major problem I have right now.
Okay, yeah, very interesting and exactly. Like good to know for institutions who are new maybe to the market. Uju, would you like to add something? Do you have any challenges that Damola maybe did not mention?
Okay, I think Damola actually hit the nail on the head, because like he mentioned, the Schengen countries need to come into this market. We have demands, not that we don't have the demands, but the issue is we don't really have the schools wanting to recruit from Nigeria, then also getting the appointment system right. Mm-hmm. I know the stress some of our students went through to get into Spain, Germany, Austria, and countries like that. And to be sincere, if the Schengen countries will, come to Nigeria, I'm sure they are going to sweep students, because is one reasonable, is also closer. They have reasonable tuition, and is also closer to Nigeria than going to Canada or say US. So I think, like he said, probably I don't know whether to call it they are shy or they are not just interested in the Nigerian market. So if there's any way to get them come to Nigerian market, sign up more agencies like us, then I think that will reduce the demands on UK, US, and Canadian markets.
Okay.
So if Damola can help us push that cause.
I am sure Damola can help us.
We need more of this in their countries.
Great, at least with his insights, which are very interesting. I think, we are at the end of our webinar, or at least these were the questions that we prepared for this webinar. First of all, of course, thank you very much for your insights and for having joined us and taking the time today. I would like to try to summarize a little the webinar, and I think some key points that we can take away from this discussion today is that Nigeria, being such a huge country with a huge population, there is steady interest in studying abroad. There has been interest in studying abroad during the pandemic, and there is still interest for the upcoming years. Even though there has been, as Uju said, a devaluation in the Naira, economically, it might be difficult for some students and parents to take on the opportunity of studying abroad, but there is still a great potential in people who are able to afford studying abroad. And you have also mentioned that some institutions during the pandemic, for example, came up with online programs which students who were not able to travel abroad happily took advantage of, which is also a great alternative for students who are not able to afford maybe studying abroad or going abroad, but studying in Nigeria with an institution abroad. So this seems to be an alternative for some students. When it comes to the key markets, there is not a big shift in the interest of study destinations, even though, Uju, you have mentioned that the UK has gained in interest, and especially with programs in the health sector, for example, even though the traditional programs are still in demand, like engineering and business and so on. But one thing that both of you mentioned is that institutions or destinations who are able to offer maybe work permits or work and study programs are definitely more in demand. And the main challenge seems to be with, like all destinations, the visa situation, that students are not able to get visa appointments on time, that there are a lot of delays, and that the demand from your side is that institutions or countries maybe can do something in that respect and try to speed up the processes maybe, or try to do something in the area of visas. I think this is more or less everything that we covered, and I hope that our viewers were able to get an overview of the Nigerian market. I want to stress again, you're saying Nigeria is a huge market. Every institution, even if they are new to the market, shouldn't shy away to step into the market, get in touch with you guys, and don't give up, because such a big market, there is something for everybody to get, and students from Nigeria are hungry for studying abroad. There is a huge demand. This is what I understood. And with this, I would like to thank you again also to our viewers for watching this webinar, and thank you to you two for joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you.